Hey everybody, Bold for Christ YouTube channel here. I want to do a quick video on the differences between man's law and God's law. All law comes from God. Any type of law is something that's permanent in nature, absolute in nature. It's not a variable, it cannot change. For instance, legislation is not absolute in nature, so that therefore it is not a law. Legislation is not law. Legislation changes, it can change daily. Depends on who's voted in that position of mayor or president or Congress or city council or whatever it is. Different people come in, they change it all, they switch it all around. So legislation is not permanent or absolute, so therefore it is not law. Law is something that's absolute, only comes from God. One of the things God does is he gives man law too. Man's law is basically to say, if as long as you're minding your own business, it's got nothing to do with me, okay? So if you are buying and smoking marijuana, it doesn't affect me in my life, so you're not violating my law. But you break into my house, you steal my property, you murder me, you're violating my law now, okay? So a very, very good basic example of man's law is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. You could also say, don't do unto others as you don't want them to do unto you. Do I want you to lie about me? No, therefore I'm not going to lie about you. Do I want you to extort money from me? No, so I'm not going to extort money from you. But just because something doesn't violate man's law doesn't mean it doesn't violate God's law. And God's law must supersede all things, okay? So, for instance, I heard somebody say, because homosexuality doesn't violate man's law, because you have two consenting adults doing it, therefore it's not a sin. It's not something that man should regulate or should get involved with. And that's absolutely not true. And the reason is because God's law supersedes that, okay? And so in God's law, he calls for certain types of people to receive the death penalty. Witches, it says witches shall not be suffered to live, okay? Also, there are other abominations. Homosexuality is considered an abomination where they are supposed to be put to death. Sodomites are supposed to be put to death. So, somebody could make the argument, oh, those two men over there taking part in that consensual act doesn't affect me, therefore I have no business in saying anything about it, okay? And that's just not true, because as a follower of the Torah, as a follower of God's law, I have to understand that God's law will supersede my law any day and time, okay? Plus, my law comes from God's law. My law comes from God. I cannot make law. Man can't create anything at all. A man can't even create so much as a grain of sand. This is one of the reasons it's such a joke when people are like, oh, the certificate of vaccination identification virus, right, came out of China. It was invented or created. You can't create or destroy anything as a man. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. It's impossible. You can't create a new creation. You can't do it. But what you can do is you can take things that already exist. You can come up with concoctions, right? A witch's brew of sorts, if you will. Poison from a plant, poison from a snake, poison from a spider, poison from an insect, right? You can inject that. You can get that into people. And then you could say, oh, what you're experiencing is a virus, you know. So man can't create. That's the whole point I'm trying to make here. So man can't create a law. All law comes from God. Man's law is law. Okay, it's absolute. It comes from God as well. So we must always remember that there is a hierarchy of laws, okay? And while we are supposed to obey and keep man's laws, God's law is on top. God's law is the most important of all the laws, okay? His law reigns supreme. And if his law says we're not supposed to suffer this type of person to exist, then that's... Pardon me, I dropped my phone in my lap. Then that's what we are supposed to follow. And as a community, the men come together and they say, okay, the Sodomites over in this house, or the Sodomites over here, we need to get together as men and go take them, extract them, and then, of course, we take them to the public square, and that's where they receive their due recompense according to the law of God. All right, guys, God bless you. Bold for Christ YouTube channel out.